Even companies that take AI seriously still end up picking the wrong use cases. A study by Rand found that misaligned use cases is one of the leading indicators for failure in AI projects. Now, I've deployed AI across dozens of Fortune 500 companies, and unfortunately, I have seen the same failure patterns over and over again when companies are selecting their AI use cases. So let's first break down the common failure patterns, and then let's actually walk through how to find high value use cases in your company. So when companies decide they want to implement AI, one of three things typically happen. They could go around the company and just crowdsource ideas from everybody. And what typically happens is a team raises a pain point that affects either a small part of the business or only a handful of people. Now, these are problems that you'll be uncovering. However, these may not be meaningful to your ROI if you actually attack them. Now, another way is companies will see a use case online, a case study published by another company, and think, hey, why don't we just copy them? But the issue arises in the context in which the company chose that use case to begin with. And the context of your company may be completely different in terms of scale, in terms of value, in terms of the people that can actually deliver on that use case, and many more factors. And so that online use case may work well for them, but it may not work well for you if you implement it. Now, lastly, and this is a really big one that I see, is starting with tools first. Now, a company will decide upfront that they want to do a workflow automation tool like NADN, or they want to start an AI agent use case. And starting this is actually a big issue because you limit the problems that you're going to be solving. Now, what I mean by this is if you commit to using AI agents, for instance, then you immediately exclude high value use cases such as forecasting or risk modeling that could be extremely beneficial for your organization. Now, all three of these approaches are missing the exact same thing. None of them are starting with the high value problems that really move your organization. Now, the most reliable way to identify high value use cases is to start with breaking down the business first. And specifically, you want to look at the value chain itself. So ask yourself, what is the chain of activities that actually provide value to the end customer? Now, let's walk through an example with a manufacturing client that I recently worked with. The value chain typically starts like this. Suppliers bring in raw materials, logistics moves them into the plant, manufacturing converts those raw materials into goods, and then the distribution then delivers them to the customers. And each part of this chain has different goals and different pain points that you'll have to focus on if you're in that business unit. See, the manufacturing teams care a lot about asset uptime because then they can produce more. Where supply chain teams, they care about the OTIF or the on time in full to make sure that they're moving things accordingly. Another way to look at this is what are the KPIs that really drive that business unit? Now, to really ensure that I'm getting the most value and also finding the real pain points in the business unit, I ask myself a couple of questions here. First is, what are the goals of the business unit? Second is, what does success mean for them in particular? Third, what are the biggest constraints or obviously pain points? And then lastly, where does the failure actually hurt if it does fail? Now, for our manufacturing client, we actually started directly core to the business, starting with the manufacturing plants. And those plants care deeply about asset uptime. Here, one of the biggest constraints, or where it really hurts, is unplanned downtime. Because unplanned downtime, that can halt production, and obviously stopping anything in the production line means you're losing millions of dollars every single day it's not up. Now, next we want to generate AI use cases to solve that actual problem itself. For example, we can produce unplanned downtime by predictive maintenance. Now, I want to be clear, there's multiple different ways that you can solve these pain points. And this solving these pain points is where we get our initial draft of AI use cases. Now, if you only lead a specific unit and not the full company, it doesn't really matter. Just do this process for that business unit directly. So now that we have a list of pain points and also high-level AI use cases for each one of those pain points, now we have to prioritize them. Now, there's a lot of frameworks out there like McKinsey's framework, which I'll flash up on screen, and these are all directionally correct, but I would say in practice, there's only 4 different factors you really need to look at. First is business impact, and this is just the actual net economic value that you're going to be having. So revenue increased, costs, things of this nature. Next is data readiness. Now, there's 2 parts to this. One is, hey, do we have enough data? But there's a second part to this, which is being able to really access that data. A lot of these enterprise companies, they have data that's scattered across their whole company, and so you first need to do an aggregation effort and then actually access that. Next is technical complexity. So how complex are the requirements? Is this actually a feasible AI use case? And what's really important here is if it's more complex, this actually means that the time to implement it is going to take longer. And so keep that in the back of your mind when we go to the next section. Lastly is organizational fit. So there is the immediate impact of when we roll out the use case, who is going to be using it? Do we have people that are going to adopt it? But the second is actually during development, do we have data owners that are ready? Do we have the engineers that can develop it? And things of that nature to ensure that we can build it properly. Now, you don't need to have everything perfect at this stage right now. But if you don't have the value and if you don't have the data readiness, then the use case may have to wait. And lastly here, you can simply score them on a scale of 1 to 5, prioritize them, and compare them to each other. But let's actually take this one step further. Now, I've worked with a lot of companies, and there is a real constraint with those who are starting their first ever AI use case inside of their AI transformation. Now, if this is your first AI deployment, you often need a quick AI win to really get the ball rolling. Now, for context, when GenAI first came out, boards were really pushing down the CEO's necks, and CEOs also were pushing onto their teams any AI use case to really keep up with the street. Now, after the MIT report, it's been what is the value that you can show me as fast as possible? And because of this, I started plotting the AI pilot value to the execution time. Now, here, if you plot all of your AI use cases, you'll see that the ideal state is something with extremely high value and very, very fast to implement. So, on the top left corner. Now, you want to keep a baseline value, but typically when you first start your AI use cases, you may want to start with a use case that is less valuable but faster to execute than a more higher value use case that takes longer to implement. So, if the use case is lower in value, but you can execute it in a week compared to months or even years, then it might be the best for you to start with. After you get the ball rolling, then you can tackle those extremely high value use cases that are going to take longer to implement. Pro tip, you can also do this the same with vendors that you're working with as well. Now, overall, the companies that are going to achieve success with AI are going to be the ones that are the most disciplined in their frameworks, identifying AI use cases, and then ultimately prioritizing. Now, in the next video, I want to actually go through the AI scoping phase, which is the next phase after this, where you choose an AI use case and then you start going for the requirements and how to build it going forward. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.